Representative Lamin Swann of Lexington died yesterday after suffering a brief illness. The 45-year-old was born with cerebral palsy.
Tonight, WKYT's Garrett Weimer and photojournalist Darnell Crenshaw spoke to advocates of the disabled community who say the man who represented the 93rd Legislative District in a wheelchair was an inspiration to many, saying he was able to use his disability as an asset. Our top story at 5:30.
Individuals with cerebral palsy may be physically disabled, but they typically have better than average minds and intelligence.
Judy Girding is the president of the Point Arc. It's an organization that helps people with intellectual developmental disabilities reach their highest potential. She says Representative Swann's physical inability may have been a plus, putting his ability in other areas.
And he's determined to carry through on whatever he takes on as a challenge.
We need more individuals like Representative Swann who demonstrate the capacity of people with disabilities to serve in leadership roles.
Harold Kleinert is the former executive director of the Human Development Institute at UK. HDI focuses on developmental disabilities, education, and research.
The fact that he had a disability brought a great deal to what he was able to contribute.
Disabled and able to contribute. Christopher Riddle is an example. He has autism and is nonverbal. This is Christopher's mom, Marie Allison.
I consider him to have overcome his disabilities. He has his own business called Chris's Canine Cookies, and he bakes cookies and delivers them at Woodstock at the vet.
He also serves Meals on Wheels. Allison says, like her son, Representative Swann strived to achieve the most he could achieve.
Because I think he led a life that contributed to society. And what more can you do?
Everybody has unique skills and talents and abilities in this world. And that we're all here for a reason.
In Lexington, Garrett Weimer, WKYT.
And coming up on The Bottom Line, I'll explain what happens now with Representative Swann's seat, how it will be filled in the legislature. That's coming up in about 10 minutes.